That is so true. There's so many dimensions to Karen Lewis. I'm going to avoid going down any path because it could be a half an hour a tangent, but she loved movies. She worked
Please
at
talk about this though. Talk about her love for movies though, because I think it's important to like. This was a Renaissance woman,
yeah, no,
right?
she loved movie. The thing about Italian is so true. And one of my favorite moments, and Jesse, you know, I love you, Jessie Sharkey, but one of my favorite moments I would tease Karen about all the time. I just loved it. So it was during the strike, the Big Daddy strike, the one in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a session. I forget. I'd lost track of where it was in the whole sequence of things. But Karen and Jessie and the bargaining team had left a session, a negotiating session, and they were meeting the press outside. And all the press with the cameras and the teeth. It's such a making me laugh because whenever I think of the press, the horde, HORDE of press people in any movie, they look awful. Nobody looks worse in a movie than they're yelling questions or incoherent. They're like barking things out. So this was like a relatively civil gathering of the horde, and she gave a prepared statement, and then she turned things over to Jessie, which was interesting. I never asked her why she turned it over to Jessie, but she did. It could be the white-black thing, you know, like we can't just have the black lady doing all the talking. You got to get a white guy in there. Yeah, we got to worry about that north side. You're getting a little nervous. Okay, it's okay, guys. There's a white guy here. The north side gets nervous. So Jessie he got the pronouns screwed up. I forget what he did, but it should have been he and him. I forget. I can't remember, but he screwed it up. It was grammatically incorrect. And even I, of course, I did go to Evanston High School. Even I, sitting at home on the north side, I thought, Jessie, you screwed that up. I didn't say it out loud. I just thought. Karen goes, she corrected him. She goes, him, whatever. Oh my God damn, you are such a school teacher. Poor Jessie.
Yeah. Although that's interesting. And you know, when you're talking about the movies, again, just this point about like she had this very famous Oscars party that she ran every year, and she would like have different themes for the party. And not only was she a movie buff, but she actually went back to film school. So after teaching, while she was teaching, she went and got her MFA at Columbia College. She took a sabbatical to finish her MFA at Columbia College and made a documentary. And she made a documentary about her uncle who had been in the military, I think, and was in Italy. And they followed like his path all around Italy. I mean, these are the types of things, you know, that this woman was doing in her free time.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you see the documentary?
I've never seen the documentary.
I've never seen it either.
I tried to hunt it down without success.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So let's get to one of my favorite topics about, and I may have mentioned this. We did a show together last week. Elizabeth, myself, Stacy Davis Gates, and Jessie at the Chicago Teachers Union. And I would like to say we were going to play it, but unfortunately they didn't record it. So it's a shame. There was some good stuff in that. But the rewriting of history regarding Karen Lewis. So the mayor of the city of Chicago at the time of Karen Lewis, his name was Rahm Emanuel. And what a piece of work that guy is. So Rahm Emanuel is now running for president in his own Rahm way, and as such is making the rounds of the talk shows and trying to tailor his spiel to whatever talk show he is. Classic Rahm. So he went, I'm not making this up, Elizabeth, he went on the Jon Stewart show. I know it's not called the Jon Stewart show, but whatever. Jon Stewart's the host. Yeah. And Jon Stewart represents sort of like the epitome of quote unquote liberal America on TV. He's been a liberal his whole life. And I guess he would call himself a progressive because liberals are ashamed to use that word anymore. And so they call themselves progressives. And Jon Stewart gave Rahm a seat on the couch, just threw softballs to him, and Rahm was batting him around. They were joking around like this is just an ordinary guy instead of the representation of the man who buried evidence of a murder.
That's right.
And closed 50 schools and closed mental health clinics and gave a middle finger to everybody who is going marching against Trump right now. They're the ones in the street trying to save our country from fascism. He was against them. All right. But now he's repackaging himself and making himself acceptable to liberals like Jon Stewart, who are happy to welcome him on and, pal around with him. And part of that rewriting of Rahm is rewriting his relationship with Karen Lewis. Whenever the subject comes up, Rahm always says, "Oh, we just fought, but we admired each other. We loved each other. And we was just fight." And I'm like, you may get your flunkies to write that, but anybody who knows Karen Lewis knows it was real, knows you were a total asshole to her. You never apologized for your behavior. And moreover, you were an asshole to the people she represented, the kids she taught, everything she believed in, all the values she had. She never dropped that. You may, it's a game to you. You're trying to trick your way into becoming president of the United States. You tricked your way into becoming mayor of Chicago, so anything is possible. So I would love for you, Elizabeth, who spent a lot of time with Karen, to talk a little bit about Rahm's attempt to rewrite the history of Karen's relationship with him. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think so the core caucus that Karen Lewis led was elected in 2010, and then 2011 is when Rahm Emanuel came in. And so even before he was actually elected, he was already taking shots at teachers. He was saying, that they were later it was Bruce Rauner who would say that they were virtually illiterate, but some of these same ideas, right? About, teachers needing to work harder, or needing higher stakes accountability measures, or, why standardized testing is important. All of these things, these attacks were already undercutting collective bargaining rights. All of these things were already in the mix prior to him even coming into office. But nonetheless, when he did come into office, Karen sat down with him and had conversations with him, and he was rude. He cussed at her. He called her out her name, and she went to the media and she told him, and she talks about this and how, he thought this is just how he speaks to people, but he wasn't going to speak to me like this. And I think that was really important as a sort of, for her, as a level setting thing. Like, I don't know how you deal with other people, but you're not going to deal with me like this. Yet that confrontational style continued. And I think the thing to remember, again, on this revisionist history that he's going around now in his press tour, is that Rahm Emanuel was defeated in Chicago, right? So yes, he did close 50 schools. He closed mental health clinics. He imposed austerity measures on a city. He insulted Black and brown children and families. Karen tells a story that she experienced of him, saying that something like 25% of students aren't ever going to be anything. So why should we invest in them? And she talks about, well, what he was about to find out is that I am here, we are here to fight for that 25%. And so I think when we think about these struggles, they were struggles over what is the future of the city, and who is the city for? Who has a right to the city? Is it the corporate elites that, really bonded on and were circling Rahm? And these are a bipartisan elite, right? These are Republicans. These are elite Democrats. These are people with big pockets and not necessarily deep connections to the communities who needed the most in the city. And so this was the battle that erupted with the 2012 strike and continued during his term. And to your point, by the end of Rahm's term, he could not go somewhere in public without people yelling at him 16 shots and a cover-up. And that referred to the cover-up of the murder of Laquan McDonald, a former CPS student, a teenager who was killed by the Chicago Police Department. When Rahm left, he could not go place. He was almost in these early poll numbers in 2014, when Karen was looking to potentially run for mayor. She was up in the polls over him. So I think this triumphalist narrative, it is revisionist. It doesn't match on to the experience that people in this city had during the years of the Rahm Emanuel administration. But the other thing, and I think that this is something important for us to note that we can learn from Karen and from CORE and from that period in the 2010s that we have to think about now, is that remember that in 2012, the CTU strike, President Obama was running for his second term, right? And Rahm Emanuel was his guy. So it wasn't just that core and the parents, and I think this is important too, the parents, the community-based organizations that were fighting alongside and in solidarity with the Chicago Teachers Union during Karen's time. They were fighting against establishment Democrats, right? Establishment Democrats in the form of Rahm Emanuel, but also on the national level. And the way that they shifted the conversation about public education, not just here in the city, but in this country, in the years following that, there were Red for Edge strikes all over this country, asserting the primacy and the importance of funding education, of making sure that teachers are paid for for the work that they're doing in classrooms, to try to connect these concerns of communities and students outside of the classroom with what was going on in the classroom. So they were fighting establishment Democrats as well. And so when you hear Rahm Emanuel today pontificate about the future of the Democratic Party and the direction it should go in, that already failed here in Chicago. His direction, his instructions for the direction of the Democratic Party has already failed to deliver here in Chicago. And I think we have to remember that on the national stage, not to mention, and I want to because I think it's important, the turn that people like him and Gavin Newsom are making when they go on these more right-wing or conservative podcasts and talk about attacks on trans students and are in alignment with that, that's disgusting. And it's deplorable, and we should treat it as such. It should be unacceptable in our politics, in progressive politics, but in our politics in this country, to attack students, to attack young people's gender identity, to certainly cover up the murder of Black children. Right?
Yeah. And by the way, Gavin Newsom is even worse than you said. He doesn't go on right-wing podcast. He has I'm not making this up, Elizabeth. He has his own podcast.
Wow.
And he invites Steve Bannon on his show. So it's now Mayor Rahm's a little different. He'll go anywhere, you know. He won't confront anybody who can actually ask him a question that's based in the reality, but he'll go anywhere and he'll be widely accepted because he's a celebrity. And so they'll just treat him like this, he's like like this image he has of this caustic guy from a TV show, only that's not real. And so they like to have him on. Oh, this is the guy. Can you drop the F-bomb for us? Let us hear the F-bomb. I'm going to tie two themes together. One, I opened up by talking about how Wall Street's now upset, even though they're too chicken to call out Trump for the tariffs because it's causing pain in their pocketbook.
Yeah.
Okay, but they were silent or supportive of all the cruel things that Trump did and the ridiculous things he did, like firing the federal workforce. They talk about dismantling guardrails that would protect us, okay? They looked the other way. They agreed. They cheered him on. And now that it's hurting them, okay, then they're crying like little babies. It's similar with Rahm. Follow me in this. So Rahm sat down and he told Karen, it was that first meeting. I believe it was a dinner at Friday night. I remember that because Rahm was supposedly keep the Sabbath, but he had dinner on Friday night with Karen. I remember Karen, we and I talked about that. Oh man, Mr. Keep the Sabbath. He told her he had just been elected. He was really fit. Hadn't been sworn in yet, Elizabeth. This was that period between the election and the official inauguration. And he told us, you're going to get in line. You're going to do this, that, and the other thing. I'm the man, you know, and you just shut up and you're going to get those hippies in your union, those commies in your union to fall in line. That's kind of the attitude he had toward her. And that's when she said, well, you know, it's going to really hurt the children in the classroom. He goes, 25% of them won't amount to anything, which Wall Street types would cheer. They aren't going to amount to anything. So it's a waste of our money. A good chunk of the North Side agrees with that, Elizabeth. It's a waste of our money. You know, my kid will make it, but those guys, it's a waste of money. That's their attitude. Okay. Rahm denied he said it. Okay, he denied he said it. Now I'm going to ask you this: if Karen Lewis said something happened and Rahm said it didn't happen, who do you believe? Who, in your humble opinion, Elizabeth, having lived a little life, studied human behavior, seen people in action, which one? The name of your book is, by the way, I Didn't Come Here to Lie. Which one would you believe? is telling the truth? Mayor Rahm or Karen Lewis? Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Let me say this. The title, I Didn't Come Here to Lie, was explicitly selected and insisted upon by Karen Lewis. Okay. So I think that answers the question for you, right? You know, and I do want to say, you know, he did deny making that comment, but she insisted upon it, and she didn't come here to lie.
Yeah, she didn't come here to lie. And you know what, Northsiders, as much as you love Rahm, even you know she was telling the truth in that moment. Even you know. That's that old Chris Rock joke about I always tell it all over. I'm not gonna tell, I'm not gonna go down that path. All right. Here's something else I gotta get off my chest. And I love for you to riff on this. I'm getting stuff off my chest because I love Karen Lewis so much. So when I talk to my friends of the We Hate the Union persuasion, and there's quite a few of them out there, and they don't know how to deal with Karen Lewis as a tremendous figure that she is in Chicago. So what they do is, I'm not making this up, Elizabeth. What they do is, you know, Ben, oh my God, you guys are so slick. They take this kid named Jackson Potter. He's a kid. He's a young guy. Jackson, I know you're not a kid anymore. I apologize. But to me, you'll always be a kid. Whitney Young graduate, 1996, I want to say. And they go, you know, Ben, Karen wasn't the creator of the union. It was just Jackson Potter. They always find a white guy. It's got to be a white guy because Karen Lewis couldn't have done it. Sometimes they say it's Jessie Sharkey. Most of them are fixated on Jackson Potter. You know, Ben, it was Jackson Potter, Ben. They always get that little Chicago thing. Well, Ben, you know, this is so. Help me, Elizabeth. Oh my God, that sounds like Red Fox. Sorry about that, Elizabeth. Help me out here. Have you heard that one too? Have you ever heard that one? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, I do want to say Karen was not the originator of CORE, the first one to bring the meeting together. And Jackson Potter, Al Ramirez, Jessie Sharkey, Debbie Pope, Carol Cariff, Stacey Davis Gates, all of these and more, you know, really did form this together. And Karen even talks about sort of the first time that she went to one of these meetings, which was very early in its time. And her and Jackson Potter were actually the original co-chairs, I think is the term, of CORE, the Caucus of Rank and File Educators. So I think Karen would be insistent that, you know, she didn't do anything by herself, right? Certainly was a dynamic leader, but also was in community with other folks that were pushing this together. But I think very quickly, you know, assumed leadership within this group.
Yeah, well, that's a lot different than saying it was all Jackson. And I got nothing but love for Jackson Potter. Okay, just let's get that straight. I guess I've been living with this my whole life. Whenever it comes to a Black woman getting credit for anything, there's that instinct to give credit to someone else, to denigrate her. They hammered her when she was alive.
Yes, and I do want to say something about that because this is a really important point to make. I think and this is the case not just for Karen Lewis, certainly, but Black women in leadership generally. They are scrutinized, they are torn apart, they are demeaned, they are caricatured in ways that is never the case for their white and male counterparts. This is how racism and sexism and misogyny work. These are systemic issues. But to be the individual that bears the brunt of this in the way that Karen Lewis did, it's hard. You know, it's hard. And she talks a bit about this, even just how she felt like she had to present herself once she was president, and the way that she would be torn apart in those moments. That's very real. And it's a thing that Black women in leadership continue to experience. So I think that's a really important point to make. And the other part of what you're saying is there is sometimes a revisionist history when we talk about Karen as well, which is people did tear her down when she was alive. And in some ways, that really only started to soften when she got sick. And I think that is something we have to grapple with as well.
No, I call it the Muhammad Ali factor. When Muhammad Ali was young and active and in full command of his brain, he was attacked. As soon as he began to lose control of his brain and couldn't, I don't know if you know the career about Muhammad Ali. I'm obsessed with Muhammad Ali. And the first memory of this is that when he lit the flame in 1996 at the Olympics, and all of a sudden they were rewriting the history of Muhammad Ali.
That's right.
And everything he had said, they were saying, well, that's not true. And now he's one of the few Like Donald Trump props up Muhammad. This is how far they've gone.
Whew.
So I'm watching it happen on the local level with Karen Lewis.
Yeah.
And I had a laugh out loud. And when the Tribune wrote this editorial about Karen Lewis after she died, what a fight. I'm like, you guys are shameless. You should have ripped her in the editorial after she died, just like you ripped her in life. At least be consistent with your hatred of powerful black women. At least be consistent. Okay, guys. Sorry, I didn't mean to go there. This is all very triggering to me in many ways. So let's move from Karen a little bit and close with some Trump talk.